Hey y'all, welcome to the Second of Strength podcast. My name is Tanner Clark. I went from sitting at a desk to speaking on stage internationally to inspire teenagers and people like you. My goal is simple: help you find your 1 second of strength to walk away from the things that are holding you back, to step into your potential, and ultimately find happiness. Thank you for spending your valuable seconds with me today. Let's go. What is going on? Welcome to this week's episode of the Second of Strength podcast. It's good to be here. I hope that you are doing well wherever you are. If you're driving in the car, you're listening at home. But yeah, I hope you're doing good. You know, my goal in doing this podcast is helping you live your best life. And, you know, there's a lot of things that come in between us and in between that. And so I hope that this podcast finds you in a good spot. And if not, I hope that, you know, the next few minutes helps lift you up. If you do have a minute, pause this, go to wherever you're listening to this podcast and give this a quick rating and a review. The bottom line is, if you like it and you want other people to hear it, giving it a review and a like, or a rating, helps more people hear the show. So anyway, so if you could do that, that would be great. But I wanted to talk to you real quick today about something that I think is really important, and as we get into the digital age, and that is helping our kids find their value and helping them feel loved and valued. And I want to tell you an experience that I had a few years ago that changed me and really, honestly, set me down this path in helping families grow, helping recognize the dangers of smartphones and what it's doing to our time and what it's doing to our value. And so a couple of years ago, I was, it was like that magic time at night, you know, when your kids are going to bed, you just put them in bed, and like for the first time all day long, you're free. And it's the most magical time of night. This particular night, it was 9:00. I had just put the kids to bed, the younger two in particular, and I was in my room. I opened up Instagram. I'm kneeling by the side of the bed, and I just start scrolling. And then I hear the most dreaded sound you can possibly hear when you're a parent and you just put your kids to bed. And I heard that little sound of footsteps walking up the hallway. And I just brace myself, and I take a deep breath, and I can see out of the corner of my eye, I can see my third youngest, I guess. She's at the time probably 9 years old. And I could just see out of the corner of my eye. And this is the child who gets out of bed frequently. She is always getting out of bed. Something's always wrong, right? And so, you know, it's her tummy hurts, or she needs water, or who knows what it is. But on this particular night, I'm kneeling by the side of my bed, and I can see out of the corner of my eye, I can see my daughter. And I just kind of exasperated, like, Quincy, what is wrong? And she goes, just, you know, real sad. She goes, my toe hurts. And I'm like, your toe hurts. I didn't laugh at her, but I wanted to. I more laughing at myself, I guess. But she says her toe hurts. And normally what I would do in this situation, and what you have probably done in this situation, is I give her a quick little, you know, like 5-second hug, give her loves, tell her that going to bed is going to help her toe heal magically or something like that, and that she just has to go and like lay down, and that's what's going to solve this thing. But in this particular night, something told me that wasn't the right thing to do. And I remember in that moment, I had my phone in my hand, and I threw it across the bed, and I told her to come over. And as she walked over to me, I made a commitment that I was going to hug her until she let go. And so as I wrapped her in my arms, phone free, she hugged me for 5 minutes. And it was the most important 5 minutes of my entire life. Because I was just going to give her a 5-second hug and say, go to bed. But she needed more than that. And I'm so grateful that day that I felt in my heart that she needed more than just a 5-second pat on the back and run off to bed, which she probably would have accepted and been fine. But I felt like she needed more. I felt like she needed to feel loved. Because it wasn't her toe, was it? It wasn't her toe that was the problem. And the other nights that I had just given her that 5-second hug and sent her off to bed, it wasn't her stomach. It wasn't that she was thirsty. It's that she didn't feel like she was getting enough love. And in that moment, I had this decision I had to make that where was I going to place my time and where was I going to place the importance of what I do? And it had to go to her. It had to go to all my kids. It had to go to my wife. And I remember in that moment, as I'm hugging her for 5 minutes, thinking about all the changes that I needed to make in my life, thinking of how I could be better. And I'm not a bad dad. I'm not, I fail a lot, but I'm not bad. I think other people probably have it worse off than my kids. I don't know, I shouldn't say that, but I knew that I could be better. I knew that just small little changes in my life could be a little bit better for her, a little bit better for me. And so I learned that day a couple of valuable lessons. The one is that we need to love our kids as much as they need to be loved, not as much as we think they need to be loved. And there's a huge difference between those two things. Loving them as much as they need to be loved versus what we believe they need to be loved. And the crazy thing is that every kid is going to be very different. I have 4 kids, and each one of my kids needs to be loved differently and for different amounts of time and in different ways. And as a parent, I think I was failing in that. I think I was not doing that correctly, which meant that some kids were getting enough love and other kids were probably feeling like they weren't getting enough love. And so I noticed in that moment that I needed to change. So 1, loving your kids as much as they need to be loved, not as much as I think they need to be loved. The other critical thing that I learned that day is that our kids, every kid, and everyone, we have a relationship in our lives. So this goes for spouses as well. But I learned that our kids need individual, intentional time every single day. And that is not something crazy. That does not mean that they need to be, taken on a date, taken for ice cream. It doesn't mean that we have to spend 5 hours a day, being intentional with them. But it does mean that we do need to spend some minutes of our day being intentional with our kids, because they know and recognize when we are not being intentional with our time for them. And so what does that look like? It could mean a 5-minute hug, as long as she needs it, right? It could be laying with your kids. One of my favorite ways to do it, especially with my youngest son, is I lay with him every night in bed. I take that time. I march up the stairs. There's a lot of stairs I have to go up. I go up the stairs and I get in bed and I lay with him, even if it's for just a couple minutes, because it's one of his love languages, is spending that intentional time in that moment right there. With my daughter, my teenage daughter, it's a little bit different. She doesn't want me jumping in bed and laying with her. She doesn't even want to hug me anymore. She's her own unique, awesome individual, and I have to find different ways to connect with her in little subtle ways and take the moments when I can take them. Sometimes she only gives me an inch, and sometimes she gives me a mile. And believe me, when she gives me that mile, I take that mile. But she doesn't always do that. And we have to recognize in each one of our kids how to do it differently. But there's a couple of things that I would recommend, 3 things really, that I would recommend to do that, to make sure we are doing that. And the first one really is just that individual, intentional time every single day. Make sure you find that time. I don't know what that is for your kids. It could be playing a game. Maybe they just need to play like a 20-minute card game or 20-minute board game or something like that. But make sure you do that. The second thing, and probably the most important thing, I don't know if it's the most important, but it's going to pay the most dividends, I think, is parents, you got to put your phone down. And teenagers, if you're listening to this and there are people in your life that deserve individual, intentional time, your friends, your family, your schoolwork, put your phone down. It is not serving you to have your phone in your hand when you are trying to have a conversation or develop a relationship with a person. There is no place for it. It's not helping, because here's what's happened. And for parents, this is really critical. If you have your phone in your hand, right? And we do it all the time. We have our phone in our hand because I don't know what we're doing. We're checking the weather. We're checking the news. We are scrolling Instagram, we are looking at Twitter, we are doing all sorts. We might be text messaging our sisters or our family. We are doing all sorts of things on these devices. But the moment that you put this device in between you and your child, you are sending a very clear message. And when we do that, we are devaluing our child and increasing the value of our smartphone. And we do it all the time, right? We've got our phone in our hand, our kids come up and they say, "Hey, Dad." And what do we say? Just a minute. Hold on a second. And we are sending one of the worst messages we can possibly send to our kids when we tell them just a second and we say the smartphone is more important than them. We are sending a very clear message to them that we value this device more than we value them, and we have to make that change immediately. Because I said that this is the thing that's going to pay the most dividends in our lives, because someday your kids are going to grow up. They're growing up every day, right? But someday they're going to keep growing up. And they're going to have to lean on themselves when they get to a certain age. They're going to have to rely on their own self-worth. But what's the message and what's the self-worth message we've been telling them for years and years and years if we always have our phone in between them? We're telling them that their value isn't very high. So why in the world would they hold themselves in such high regard if we are not holding them in such high regard? Think about that. When we have our phone in between us and our kids, we are telling them that their value is low. And the value of this smartphone, which costs about $1,000, is way higher than them. And those kids are priceless. But we are absolutely putting a price on them. And if we don't change that now, think of how our kids are going to be as they grow up, as they get older, as they are becoming young adults, teenagers, 20-somethings. But there was always something more important than them in between them and their parents. Man, we got some work to do. And I hope that this is like a self-evaluation. This is a self-evaluation that I've done in my life and I continue to do. But I hope it's a self-evaluation for you where you take a moment and you just check yourself. And I talk a lot about our 1 second of strength, and we have to find this 1 second of strength, and we hack our brain, right, to make a choice in every moment. We always have this opportunity to define what we want to do. And when your kid comes up to you and says, "Hey, Dad," and you've got this phone in front of you, I hope you find your 1 second of strength and put it down, because there is nothing more important than your child in that moment. There's nothing more important. You might be saving the world on this phone, but you are ruining their world. Think about that. So that's the first thing. We got to put our phone down. The second thing is, and I heard this once, and it was just this great concept that I took to heart. I'm working on. It's something I want to get better at. But when you see your kids for the first time, right? So you come home from work, they get home from school, whatever it may be, right? When you see your kids or you see your people for the first time, and again, this is not parent to kid, exclusive. This is also kid to kid. This is teen to teen, right? When you see your friends, when you see somebody that you love, when you see someone that you care for, and in this particular instance, I'm talking when you see your kids, the number one thing you need to do, aside from putting down your phone, is act like a puppy. And if you've ever had a puppy, and we have a puppy, he's a golden retriever, wonderful dog. He's about 14 months old. You can walk out the door for 2 minutes, be gone, and come back in, and that dog is so excited to see you, wagging tail, running up, jumping on you, wants to see you. If you leave for a day and you come back, that dog is the most excited he has ever been in his life. And it's all because of you. And so the next time you see your kids for the first time, right? First time they get back from school that day. First time they get back from a friend. I want you to act like that dog. I want you to act like a puppy and be the most excited you have ever been in your entire life to see them. Celebrate them, love them, shower them with hugs, shower them with praises. Just be there, be present for them. And it will change their entire day. It'll change everything. Because someday, the other side of what I heard was someday when your kids become a teenager, they're going to be cats. And when your kids are cats, they don't want you to be a dog, right? And so you got to take this opportunity to be with them, because here's the deal. You don't get that much time. We got one life to live. We have one opportunity to raise our kids, right? My daughter is 16 years old and she is about to leave this house, and it scares me every day. Man, time is short. Time is limited. We can't waste it being stuck on our smartphones. We can't waste it being in La La Land when they are in the real world. We got to be there and we got to be present for them, right? I mean, we get 18 summers, 18 spring breaks. You get about 22 lost teeth. Someday you're going to carry your kid for the last time. Someday, they're not going to ask you to lay in bed with them anymore. I hope that's not today, but that day is coming. And so make sure today, whatever you do, you increase the value of your kids and you don't put anything in between it, because nothing is more important. And I know we've got things we got to do, right? We've got life and responsibilities and a lot of things. But they don't know that. They just know that you're the most important thing in their life, and they need you. They need you. And when we're present, and when we are present in our kids' life, it will change everything about their life. Everything about their life. And the cost to do it on our side, just putting your phone down. The cost to do it on our side, walk up a flight of stairs. The cost to do it on our side is very, very little. But the dividend it will pay off in their life is absolutely monumental. It will change everything about them. So I hope this helps you today. Again, your kids need individual, intentional time daily. We need to love them as much as they need to be loved. And we do that really in a couple of ways. Giving them that individual, intentional time. We've got to put down our phones. And we got to greet them like puppies, right? We got to love them. We got to rush into them. We got to make sure they know that we are extremely excited to see them every single time. So anyway, hope this helps you. Until next week, go find your one single second of strength and be happy. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I hope it helped you. If you haven't already, hit subscribe so you never miss another episode, and leave a review for the show. And as always, go find your 1 second of strength and be happy.